Still, economic ties keep the dialogue open. With 25 million ethnic Turks in Iran and more than 3 million Iranian tourists visiting Turkey last year, the relationship runs deep, even as trade has dipped to $6 billion since its 2016 peak. And today, after Israel's deliberate strikes on Iran, Turkey walks a careful line, publicly defending Iran's rights, pushing for de-escalation, while preparing militarily and diplomatically. Sinem Köseoğlu, Jazeera Istanbul.
Kayaoğlu is an assistant professor with the Institute for Area Studies at the Social Sciences University of Ankara. He's joining us from there. So thank you very much indeed for being with us on Al Jazeera. How is Turkey responding to what's happening?
Thank you very much for having me. Turkey is responding to the ongoing events in the region, namely the conflict between Iran and Israel, in various forms. So far, the reactions have been solidly in support of international law and the fact that Israel attacked Iran, this time without provocation, on the pretext, and rather a flimsy one, on the IAEA protesting certain parts of Iran's nuclear program. But as we just heard from the IAEA chief, there was no indication that Iran was developing a nuclear weapon. So especially Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has taken the lead in vehemently criticizing Israel and engaging the Turkish public, and really raising the Turkish public's awareness of the recent successes of the country's defense industries. But he also announced earlier this week that Turkey would be stockpiling a lot more ballistic and cruise missiles as a first step towards increasing its level of deterrence. On the second front, Turkey has also been active on the diplomatic front, although because of the nature of the war and because of the apparent pivot of U.S. President Donald Trump, this has been going into the back burner, or at least to behind closed doors. He has called last weekend, Turkish President Erdogan called President Trump twice. They spoke on Saturday and again on Sunday to find a way out of this mess. And there are indications that still President Erdogan is trying to engage the Americans, trying to engage President Trump, for him to put pressure on the Israelis to halt their attacks on Iran in exchange for hopefully Iranians showing additional flexibility in the nuclear negotiations. And third, there's actually a lot of discussions within the Turkish public. This is less a government thing than at the popular level, because of the country's its military-industrial complex and its rising profile in recent years. There's a very hectic debate on different channels on what should Turkey do next, besides fixing its economy and increasing its defense and security budget. There's some additional things, but that's how I would summarize Turkish action so far.
I understand that Turkey has got a 560-kilometer border that it shares with Iran. What are Turkey's main fears here?
To put it simply, a repeat of the influx of undocumented, of irregular immigrants from another country of the sort that we saw from Syria during that country's 14-year civil war. And there was a sense that at least some Syrians would go home now that schools, K-12 schools have closed today. That more Syrians would be willing to go back to both, see their countries, take their kids back home, but also see the country for themselves, but also help to rebuild their countries at the very least. And now the mood has somewhat soured here in Ankara, because there is a sense that if this conflict between Israel and Iran drags on, there could be another wave of immigrants from Iran, and that would lead to all sorts of economic and social problems for the Turkish public. So I would say that there's some anxiety on that front.
Benjamin Netanyahu has been warning for about 33 years of what he perceives to have been the imminent threat of nuclear war, nuclear arms from Iran. Does this attack come as a surprise to Turkey?
At At this intensity, yes. The attacks themselves, an attack, no, because we've seen various sorts of exchange of fire, if you will, between Iran and Israel last year, including Israeli rather limited airstrikes compared to what we're seeing now. But this level of attack and what is apparent, a regime change, an Israeli attempt at regime change in Iran, I don't think was expected, or at least not through such overt means. And so there's also a cause for concern. This has led to some concern among certain elements of the public that somewhere down the road, the Israelis might try to do something similar. Here in Turkey, although most people are a lot more confident that because of the different political nature of our political system here in Turkey, there's less worry on that front.
Baron Kayaoğlu, we appreciate you giving us that breakdown. Thank you very much indeed for your time, sir.